Okay, what are the effects of hormone actions? What can hormones do? They stimulate secretion from the endocrine or the exocrine cell. They activate or inhibit some enzymes. They can stimulate or inhibit mitosis or meiosis or both. They can open and close ion channels in the cell's plasma membrane so they can alter the membrane potential. And they can activate or inhibit transcription of genes so they can alter protein synthesis and gene expression. They control what DNA is doing, possibly. So they're very powerful. They have a lot of functions, a lot of things they can get involved in. Looking at some hormone interactions, how we maintain homeostasis by hormones working together or against each other. Many hormones have complementary actions where the hormone interacts with a different target cell to accomplish a common goal. An example of this would be the hormone from the adrenal gland and hormones from the pancreas. Both work together during exercise to maintain homeostasis. They can also be synergist, where they act on the same target cell and they basically have the same effect. So the effect is more pronounced. For example, estrogen and progesterone both act on the ovaries to help with the release of the egg. They can also be antagonists, where they act against each other. They have opposite effects. For instance, insulin stores sugar, but glucagon releases sugar. So they have opposite effects. Now, looking at the lifespan of the hormone, I told you we'd talk about it later. Those hormones that are made are going to circulate in the bloodstream until they get to a target cell and bind to a receptor, or they're broken down and deactivated. So the amount of hormone in the blood varies from minute to minute. It's going to depend on how fast and how much hormone the endocrine gland is making and how fast it gets removed from the blood. Some hormones are inactivated very rapidly, and others are removed slowly because they have to go through the kidneys and be eliminated in urine and go to the liver and be broken down by enzymes. The rate at which they are eliminated depends on their structure and if they bind to the proteins or not, and how closely they bind. Half-life is the amount of time it takes for the plasma concentration of a hormone to reduce by half. Now, hydrophobic hormones have the longest half-lives. They last often a week or more, and that's because they're bound to the proteins. They're bound. Hydrophilic have shorter half-lives. They're not bound. They're free. So they are going to last only a few minutes or even seconds, just a few seconds. Now, objective 9 is where we are. How do you regulate hormone secretion? There are 3 stimuli that do this. First is hormonal secretion. Some of the endocrine cells can increase or decrease their amount of hormone by responding to what other hormones are in the body. Another hormone can tell them to secrete more or to secrete less. For instance, the hypothalamus will tell the anterior pituitary, secrete more of this or stop secreting it, secrete less. Another stimulus is humoral stimuli, which tells us it's got to do with fluids. If they respond to a different concentration of an ion or molecule in the blood or the extracellular fluid. We make insulin because there is or isn't glucose in the blood. We may need to secrete more insulin or less insulin, depending on how much glucose is in our blood. The last stimulus is the neural stimuli, where some of the endocrine cells will respond to signals from the nervous system. For instance, when the sympathetic nervous system takes over, the adrenal gland will secrete the adrenaline. Now, hormones are regulated by negative feedback loops, and this is objective 7. There's going to be a stimulus when the variable deviates from the normal range. The receptor is going to detect that deviation. It's going to stimulate the control center that's often just an endocrine cell, and it will increase or decrease secretion of that hormone. And then there's a response, an effect or a response, because that hormone triggers the response in the target cells. And it gets conditions back in the normal range, which, when it gets there, then we're going to decrease this homeostatic response.